Okay, alrighty. Hi, I'm Jane Austin, as you know, from SB20 Australia Media. I'd like to welcome you to our final session in our SB20 in Conversation series. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today in Hobart, the Muanina people, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. I've got a couple of screens going here tonight, so and no printer access because it's been a hectic few weeks. I don't have my normal SB20 pictures behind me because I'm in hotel quarantine. This is my first night, so I'm coping okay at the moment, but pleased to report my daughter's doing well now. She wasn't well last week, but we'll do our best with the internet tonight. Hopefully it'll get us through, but yeah, we'll see how we go. So it's the last session tonight. Whoops, Daisy, nearly knocked my wine over. That would have been a tragedy. It's the last of our sessions tonight, and I thought it would be fitting for us to sort of round out our session by having a chat with our SB20 executive. And we've got online from the SB20 executive our President Scott Glanville, our Vice President Chris Dare, our Secretary Felicity Allison. Hopefully our Treasurer Jill Abel will come on later. She's got a conflicting Zoom meeting, would you believe, at this time of the night, unfortunately for her, for work, but also isn't feeling very well. So hopefully she'll come on about 7:30 or so. And we haven't got Ollie yet, but hopefully he'll be on soon. We've also got guests from Singapore. Welcome, Jeff, tonight. And we might have a special appearance from somebody from another part of the state in a couple of, well, probably about 10 or 15 minutes. Oops. Okay, so this is an interesting moment because that's the hotel ringing, which I need to take that call. So, Scott, could you host for a second and I'll mute myself?
No worries. So I might just start by introducing it, by thanking, Fee for putting her hand up to be secretary. We, as you could probably remember, we didn't have a secretary at the last AGM, and we asked for a volunteer, and Fee has put her hand up. So thanks, Fee.
No problem.
Hopefully it's much work for you. So the executive, we have been doing a little bit of work behind the scenes, getting ready for the season, which we'll be running through some items tonight. The program is looking pretty similar for previous years. We start with our pre-Christmas twilights. They start on the 8th of October and go through to the 10th of December. There's 8 of those. With a bit of luck, with a bit of weather, we'll get more in than last year. So I think we've got 3 more than last year. And following that, we obviously have our post-Christmas twilight. Starts on the 14th of January. Some of the keelboat sailors might be familiar that they start back on the 7th, but we start a week later and we go through to the 18th of March. So that's our twilight program. Jane, I'll hand back to you. You're right.
Yeah, all good, all good. So, Scott, the Nationals were obviously sailed in Triabunna this year, and I think probably everyone online who had anything to do with it would agree that was probably one of the most successful regattas we've had here in Tasmania. What's the plan for the Nationals for 2021?
Well, at our AGM, we voted to go to Melbourne to link up primarily for the boats that were heading to Singapore. Given everything that's happened, we've decided to put that on hold. Chris will give us a bit of an update later on that, but the Nationals are back in the Derwent. They're being hosted by the DSS and on the March long weekend again. So that's the 6th, 7th, 8th of March 2021.
Okay. We've got one of the largest fleets in the Southern Hemisphere and one of the largest fleets located in one place, probably in the world. Can you give us a sense of what the size of the current fleet is? Obviously, we know we peaked for the 2018 Worlds, but what the size of the current fleet is and what the interest is in the class at the moment, new boat owners, new things that are happening particularly in Hobart.
We've actually held on very well since the Worlds with our numbers. We actually had 33 SBs registered last year, which was the second most of of any of the regions in the World Council. Russia was the only place that had more boats registered than Australia. And I expect probably to have higher numbers. There's the boats that went up north hadn't got themselves into the class yet. And we're hoping with some announcements later on tonight that we'll get those 5 registered. So potentially high 30s will be our numbers. We're also looking at other options with some boats around Australia. We've been given some contacts for some more boats we know, which we're going to go out and contact and see if we can get those numbers up. So it's still very strong. The Worlds were fantastic, and they were negative in that all the boats are in Hobart, but our numbers have held up pretty well.
And any scoops, any new boat owners, anyone new coming into the fleet you can announce tonight?
Yes, well, there's certainly a local boat. Bow 64 has changed hands. Michael Robertson, I think, off the top of my head, but we'll make contact with them, and hopefully they'll be out on our first twilight night. And there's a couple others inching around. I don't believe any sales have happened on them yet, but there may be a couple more new sales. So it's always good to see boats swapping and being sailed, I guess, primarily.
Exactly. So I'll just throw to Chris, perhaps. Let me just have a look here. So, Chris, you're usually based in Victoria, and we've had some nationals, obviously, in Sandringham and Blairgowrie before, and also Mooloolaba. What are the strategies that the executive has taken on to grow the class interstate and intrastate?
Well, I think Scott's kind of touched on some of that. I mean, we think we're all conscious that we need to, grow the class on the mainland, as everyone in Hobart calls it. And part of that is trying to find where boats are. I mean, obviously, in Melbourne, I'm unaware of any boats, although Scott suggested this afternoon there was one in Melbourne that I can't say I've ever seen on a race course. But there certainly are a couple of boats in Sydney. I know Jarvis has got 2. Funnily enough, they're both sitting on the side of the road in the same spot they were 6 months ago when I had a look at them. And I believe there's probably a couple in Queensland. And then obviously I definitely know there's boats over in Perth at Fremantle Sailing Club. So I think we're just trying to track down what owners there are on the mainland, and then certainly trying to get some regattas going on. And I think in the first instance, that might be us tacking onto the back of regattas like the one at Middle Harbour that was proposed for November. I think they had like a sports boat type regatta. They reached out to the class and we were keen to go, and I'd committed to go along with a couple of others. But obviously with the COVID situation, all that's kind of had to be put on hold. But I'd like to think that, we can get a few boats going. And that probably, if we can get the boats moving a bit in Sydney, will be a good thing. It'll take a commitment from us, I suppose, elsewhere to get to Sydney. And then so hopefully we can pick some good regattas to try and be part of. And, if you get 8 or 9 or 10 boats on the start line, probably in a Sydney sense, I don't see too many other boats other than maybe in the Etchells where they got those numbers anyway. So.
No, that'd be a good outcome, wouldn't it? In terms of the youth class, I know we haven't got Ollie on tonight, but how are you tackling that in terms of bringing youth into the class and keeping the youth that you've already got engaged in the class here? And again, sort of looking interstate, are there any specific strategies targeting youth?
Oh, well, Jane, I don't know whether I think there's any specific strategies. Obviously, Ollie is part of the committee trying to help and guide us through that. I mean, I can speak from my own experience with having 21 and an 18-year-old kids that, that both enjoy their sailing. I mean, it has to be a social element to it. The kids generally tend to like short, sharp regattas around kind of teams, racing style stuff. And even if you look at, I think, the ones in the class in Hobart, they've probably come out of that style of racing. But, they won't want as my kids call it. They won't want old farts like us kind of driving that. It'll be really driven from the youth kids themselves, and maybe part of our role is to provide equipment for them and that to try and get them into the class and so forth. But, you know, the cost of the boats are pretty cheap. So, you know, for a group of kids to get together and purchase a boat's not beyond the means of what they'd spend on other classes, I don't think.
Mm. And I'm not sure if you discussed this when I was just offline before, but are we having a youth regatta next year?
The intention is to continue with that, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had one planned for this year, but that got killed by COVID in late March. So the intention is to push ahead with that. We're also intending to increase our relationship with the Sandy Bay Sailing Club and try and get together a list of 6 or 8 sailors that are just starting to step up into the bigger boats and see if we can get them out onto the SBs at a Thursday night. We're not going to, the intention is to release the weight limit a little bit for the Thursday nights, just to encourage anyone who wants to take a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid on, just to understand that we're not going to worry about it for that night. We're trying to encourage the youth to get into the class. So we'll see how that goes, see if we can get a few more across that way. And with a bit of luck, we might talk some dads or mums into buying boats as well.
Sounds like a good plan. Fee, as a former Commodore of the Sandy Bay Sailing Club, how does that suit you? I know that you've, or what your view of that would be. I know we've had the Try SB20 day that Sandy Bay Sailing Club has fostered. Is that something that you think that the kids would take to?
Absolutely. And I think if there's, as Scott said, a group of committed kids, it doesn't need to be a whole crew, but a group of them that will be there to keep the boat safe, to keep the boat organised and a good, fun, social atmosphere too, definitely get them in there. The only thing with the younger kids is, of course, they've all got their own classes as well that they're sailing, plus teams racing, which is on next term it's on Tuesday nights. So they will be pretty heavily committed with their own sailing. But, you know, I still believe that there are some sailors there who just want to get on those bigger boats and have a go at it too. But I presume Sandy Bay will continue with the Come and Try Day. That was been so successful the last few years, and there wouldn't be any reason not to.
Yeah, sounds good. Peter, have we got you online? I think we might have Peter online, Scott. So the state titles for 2021, I can't quite do a drum roll, but I believe we've got a big announcement to make tonight, Scott.
We certainly have an announcement. Whether it's big or not, I guess everyone else can judge. But certainly after the success of the Tri-Bunna Nationals last year, we wanted to promote the travelling of the boats and also make sure that people kept their trailers in good condition and were still comfortable and confident with the travelling. We also wanted to promote the class in other areas. So we made contact with the Port Dalrymple Yacht Club, who obviously have some boats up there. And I'm pleased to be able to announce that on the 30th and 31st of January, we're going to hold the state titles at the Port Dalrymple Yacht Club. Peter, is that you, boardroom? Can we see you?
It is. Can you hear me? Or?
Hear you, but
yep.
We can't see.
All right.
So for those who don't know, we've got Peter Sleuth on board. He's from the Port Dalrymple Yacht Club. He'll be most likely involved in the RO side of the regatta. Is that correct, Peter?
Up to you guys. I'm happy to work with Rossi, so whichever suits you. But yeah, we've definitely got both Greg and I are national ROs, so that's not an issue. So whichever way you want to do it.
Very good.
Okay. So Peter, have you got a video camera down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen?
I had you all up and I minimised it, and I see you, Jane, but
Okay. All right, we'll press on, but yeah, I can see that your camera's off. So down in the bottom left-hand corner, it'll say start video. So see if you can perhaps hit that, just so we can say hello. But anyway, nice to hear from you again, Peter. I think last time we spoke was, there you are, we can see you now, was at a Three Peaks race a long time ago.
It was when you were doing our media.
Yeah, that's the one. So where are things at for the Port Dalrymple Yacht Club? What does this mean for people up north?
I'd have to say that Greg and our Vice Commodore and Commodore dropped me in it tonight, so I haven't had any of the previous conversations that Barry's had, but it's in our program, and we'd be rapt to have you guys along. So what have we got up to? I think we got 5 boats up there now. There's 3 at Tamer and 2 privately owned at the club. Chris Bain and what's young Mr. White? Yeah, Nick, yeah, White. So that, yeah, they've joined the large group of trailables we've got. So more than happy to have them.
Fantastic.
And more than happy to have you guys. So.
How many boats can you accommodate at Port Dalrymple? How many SBs?
Depends how you want to. If with the current pontoons and things we got, I did a quick calc earlier, and we could take 20 boats without doubling any up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 120 metres of berthing space there with the new pontoon layout we've got. So and there'd be options for other places to moor them as well over at TYC's Marina as well. So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think boat numbers would be an issue at all.
Yeah. And what do you think the interest would be in the class more broadly, not just from people who are already into the SBs, but people up in the north at the opportunity to get involved in SB20 sailing?
I think it's probably there. I mean, there's 2 guys that have obviously got into it already through the boats that Tamer bought, chartering them and then moving on to their own. We've probably got a fairly active trailable fleet, but they've all got their own boats at the moment. So, but there's still potential for others to want to move into the class. That's for sure. Yeah.
And sailing at up on the Tamer, I mean, I know the Three Peaks race always all relied on the tide, but how will those SB20 boats go sailing up there?
No, they'll go fine. So the weekends that have been, or the weekend that's been chosen has got sort of a 2 o'clock and a 3 o'clock high tide. SBs don't draw any more than, I sail a hole in 25 and I draw a little bit more than an SB does. And yeah, there won't be any issues there. I mean, the November regatta that we run up there for keelboats and trailables, we've had Richard Fisher's run his Benedict 40.7 when he had that in it and things like that. So there's no issue with water. It's not the Derwent, but there's definitely no issue with water. So excellent.
And from the sailors that are online tonight,
we know that.
Sorry, you go.
We know the limitations of it, so we don't set courses that are going to be an issue for anyone.
No, very well experienced. Everyone who's on tonight, have you got any questions for Peter or Scott about that championship coming up? Any other questions?
Are you expecting to have those 5 boats from Tamar and Port Dalrymple involved, do you think? Are they excited or?
Yeah, the 2 at the club definitely would be. I know there was Tamer obviously own those, so they'd probably charter them out. But I would say there'd probably be guys in our club that sail trailables that would want to jump in a boat for that weekend, so they would probably look at leasing the Tamer ones, yeah. And there'd be people at Tamer that want to sail them as well. So I wouldn't see any reason why there wouldn't be 5 boats sailing from up there. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
And once you have a regatta like that up in the north, I'm just thinking of the lasers that were out off Devonport, off Mersey. Was it start of last year? how much sort of linkage is there along the coast with what goes on the Tamar? Do you think that, you know, that will whet the appetite of some of those other Northwester sailors?
Could do. We get quite often a few trailable guys come along to the inshore champs in November. So yeah, there's a bit of crossover between all the clubs. So, yeah, potentially is, I suppose, for once it's up there for people to come and look at it. Yeah, so it wouldn't be a problem there. I mean, there might be guys down the coast that want to grab one of Tamar's boats as well. So yeah.
Well, we'll have to do a lot of. Sorry,
Yeah,
Chris, you go.
I think Jane Forrest, obviously, you know, taking it to the north of the state just tries to open up another market to the participation, hopefully new owners and so forth. And as Scott, you know, kind of outlined, it also, you know, keeps the trailers that, you know, people, you know, a lot of people went to the trouble of getting road ready, you know, road worthy this year. They can keep them in condition, and then obviously, you know, the year after, we'd hope that we can get some people to Melbourne and even to the regattas in Sydney. So, you know, the boats, I probably know better than most. The boats actually tow really easily, and once you figure out how to pack them up, they don't take that long either. So we'll make a few mistakes packing them up to start with, but
you take lots of photos. I've learned that.
So, yeah, I did. You do, and as I said, we all make the odd mistake in relation to that stuff. But you know, the beauty of the boats is that you can tow them around pretty easily. So, you know, if we can get one or two more boats up north, that'd be great. And hopefully, those people might then want to come, you know, to regattas in Melbourne or Sydney, you know, moving forward, because you know the social aspect of the sailing is, I think, one of the strengths of the class. So
yeah, totally. Look, thanks so much, Peter, for coming online tonight, and we will be working with you, no doubt, over the next few months, particularly from some promotion perspective. So we'll be back in touch as an association, I'm sure, via Scott and the executive, and do our best to promote this big time, because it's something fantastic for the class, and it'd be nice to sort of get away from a north-south divide. I was sort of thinking maybe there'd be a north-south cup or something, but it'd be nice to actually not have that and just have a really nice united fleet in Tasmania.
No, we're looking forward to having you. I mean, there's a heap of a lot of your younger crews would have been up to PD for sabos and lasers and things like that. So there's a lot of people that have been up and experienced it. So yeah, we could describe us as the Solent of the north of Tasmania. So we've got tide, so that'll be a new experience for everyone. So.
Oh God, I can hear people shivering when you said that. The Solent. Seth will be there with his cricket.
I'll have to get you offline so you can give the tips out to us, okay?
It runs in, it runs out. That's the tip.
I've had one cheeky comment from Steve saying plenty of rain, then we'll ignore that, Peter. Once you go to the north of the state, it doesn't rain as much, I know.
Not in January, it'll be fine.
I'm very impressed to read your championship brochure, Peter. It talked about warm, balmy nights in January. And
that's it. That's the sales pitch. Yep. Beautiful, balmy nights. That's the
and
one.
Palm trees in the background, like Chris.
Yeah, palm trees and pine trees. So, yeah, looks like Norfolk Island.
Look, thanks so much, Peter. We'll feel free to stay on the line too. We'd love to have you for the rest of the night, and we'll look forward to that state titles early next year. I digress. The Australian Sailing Tasmania Sailing Awards have been announced over this last week. We've had a few people from the SB20 class nominated and have also been successful. So I'm going to throw a question to Jill, who's actually joined us now, Jill Abel and Felicity. But I'd first of all like to congratulate them on winning the She Sails Australian Sailing Tasmania category in this year's awards, and we wish them the very best for the national awards, which I think are announced in October. So congratulations, ladies. You often hear in the sort of feminist area, well, I think it applies everywhere really, if you can't see, you often hear that you can't be what you can't see. And my question to you as the national Australian female champions, how could you leverage your Australian championship title to promote SB20 sailing to women that are either in the rest of the state or interstate? And do you think that as a class we need a specific promotion campaign that we need to develop to promote that sailing specifically for women?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say you need to be seen, because I think predominantly for women, unless we're out on the water, and you know, our boat is all women, and it's not that we don't like men, but we are there to promote women in sailing, and that, you know, get out there and give it a go. I mean, Jill and I have been very lucky. We grew up sailing, and we have sailing families and sailing husbands and children, but at the same time, it's hard work sometimes to prioritise sailing as number one and everything else is number two. So I think that's probably one of the hardest things, but unless women are on the water and showing that they can sail, other women won't be interested. They'll see it as something that they can't do. So for us, we need to be as visual as possible. And we do get a fair bit of, or we do get a lot of media coverage and a lot of promotion from our boat. I mean, the name helps, but Jill and I and our two crew, Melissa and Bridget, we've been very committed to the class and are passionate about sailing. So whether we're male or female, that's our passion, is to sail. But ultimately, to get women on the water is our aim. Not always easy. Jill might have a few more ideas.
Yeah, I always juggle around, you know, the promotion. I think it's about encouraging everyone. Excuse me, I do have a cold. It's about encouraging everyone to go sailing. I'm not so much the fly the female flag, despite the fact that that's what I choose to do in our girls' boat. But I just see that sailing has always been, since a little girl, has been an environment that's always been, had great opportunities for both male and female. And I think out of all the sports I've played, it's probably been one of the sports that stands out in its inclusion. And I know that some people have different experiences, and we've got to be conscious of that and make sure that people don't feel uncomfortable, whether you're a male or a female in any environment. But I do think that the sailing community here in Tasmania is extraordinarily good about including everybody. And so for me, it's about sailing, number one. Two, it's a choice that I made to sail with Felicity out of a friendship. Now, if one of my best friends happened to be a male and I wanted to go sailing with them, it might be the same situation. But I do, I guess, feel that there's additional reward for us being an all-four female crew in that boat, especially in windy weather when we know that we just don't have the same physical capacity. And so that reward's even more special at the end of those days.
We tend to go better in the windy weather, actually, Jill, too, which is, for us at the end of a race, it's like, oh my God, that was hard work, but my God, it's fun, so much fun. And when we get the boat up, and I am a bit of a, you know, Jill goes, oh, shut up, Fee, stop screaming, because as soon as I see the, you know, the Velocitech going to 16 knots, and going, oh my gosh, we're 16 knots, just concentrate. But Jill's absolutely spot on. You know, sailing is our number one passion. How to get it out there. Both Jill and I have done a lot of work with girls sailing through, you know, Jill's daughter, but also at the school that I work at. It's been something that you just do. It's like any other sport. It's not whether it's boy or girl, if everybody's in it, let's have a go. I think the hardest thing is to get women to commit to an every week program. If it's every now and then, that's okay, but to actually commit to that, I think there always seems to be something else that crops up.
I think that's a little bit of the saying that, are you able to do everything? And the answer is yes, you are able to do everything, but not necessarily all at the one time. And I know that we definitely had that time in our lives when kids were younger and we didn't have the time to go sailing, and then all of a sudden you start to emerge back into the real world when they become more independent and you don't need to be around as much. So it is about just timing in life. When you're young, a female, you can do whatever you want. In between, it gets a little bit limited, and towards the end, away you go again.
Again, I have to say, Jill's right in saying the SB20 Association has been amazing. Support when we first got into the boats, you know, we had so many people helping us, so many people coming up and saying, what do you think about this? Or have you tried this? And still, you know, there's so much for us to learn, and there's always someone there to give us a hand. And we have an awful lot of fun.
Well, I think what's probably one of the points, I think from sort of my understanding of young women in sport, that once kids get to, or young women get to about 16, there's all sorts of things that, and it's not saying that it's not the same for guys to a certain extent, but I think the proof's in the pudding in terms of the number of men versus women on the water. And that when kids get to about 16, a lot of women drop out of sport for all sorts of reasons. So I guess I was coming back to my point about as the SB20 female champions, could you see yourself being involved in sort of club conference presentations on the SB20 sailing and your journey through, and sort of being the role models that we know you are locally, maybe at Port Dalrymple, or maybe interstate, or doing, you know, hooking into a club conference via Zoom and sort of profiling your achievements that way? Because I think ultimately, if we're not seeing that many women in the class, you know, there's probably a bit of work to do.
Look, look, both of us are definitely up for that. We haven't had any offers yet.
No, I'm just thinking it might be something we need to work on.
You know, we're both pretty good at talking. So
too busy, Fee.
Pardon?
You've been too busy up until now.
A little bit busy. I'm okay now. I'm back to normal now.
I think, Jane, just the other thing, maybe if I just in the relation to, you know, the girls in the sport, it doesn't have to be an all-female crew. And I say that because in boats I've sailed on, I mean, you know, we finished fourth at a SB20 Worlds with a female 3-up with the female 4-deck. And, you know, Ella was equal to any crew that ever sailed with us, irrespective of the sex, and was very competent at what she did, and brought, I suppose, a calming influence to two blokes on the boat, I might add. So we actually saw that as a real positive. And then even I'll reflect a bit on the TP52 program. You know, I mean, I've got a young daughter, but, you know, I invited two girls, young girls that are in their early 20s onto the boat to give them an opportunity. And, you know, those girls were fantastic at the job they did and the role they played and so forth. And it wasn't on an all-girl boat. There were blokes on there, and often the blokes actually behaved themselves a little bit better when the girls were around. But, you know, they were treated equally, and then sometimes it's just giving the girls an opportunity. And I think in the class, you know, there's no reason why, you know, in a 3 or 4-up boat, there can't be 1 or 2 girls or mixed crew. And I encourage anyone to look at that as part of their crewing stuff, because what I have learned over the years is that there's plenty of girls that are far more capable than the blokes you might actually want sailing on your boat. So keep a really open mind.
Maybe that's an idea like the Volvo Ocean Racing. They have to have a female on board.
It could well be, you know, but, you know, the point is just, you know, there are some fantastic, you know, look in Hobart there, a lot of the people have got young girls coming to the back, you know, out of school into their early teens, university lives, and they do have a bit of time on their hands. So, and often to keep them in the sport, they just want to get involved. It's one of those great sports where we can all compete equally.
I think the key word that Chris keeps using there, and it's across the board in employment and all ranges when you talk about men and women participation, it's about ensuring that the opportunities are there. So it's not about defining whether you need to balance it out or even it up. It's just making sure that it's the opportunities there, the environment is welcoming, and that it's fair and equal throughout whatever you do.
And I think having fun is
to emphasise too is the when we're racing, we don't look at a boat and go, it's a female boat, it's a boat. So the respect is there.
I've got to butt in, Scott.
Female.
going to butt in on you on that one, because I know from talking, I think it was Cole when in the Worlds in 2018 had a story about when some of the intense, and I don't know which particular crews, but when they're, and I don't know if you've had this experience, Felicity and Jill, but they were pretty harangued on the race course by a lot of the other guys when they realised, you know, oh, this is a female crew, and he hadn't actually ever really noticed that on the water before, because he's always mostly sailed with guys, and was pretty unimpressed by some of that. And they weren't local sailors, I'm pretty sure, but he was quite aware of the reaction of other sailors on the water to the female crew.
Yeah, I think
I think they realised he was there.
Yeah, Jane, that happens across all sports, but you know, it's up to the sport to stand up to that type of behaviour and just not tolerate it. And,
yeah.
You know, if that type of stuff went on, I think we're a mature enough class to kind of deal with that if that was the case. So, you know, I would hate to think that the girls don't want to get involved in the class because they feel intimidated or bullied, and that I don't believe that's where we're at in Australia in relation to the class. I think we embrace the girls, and that I think that, you know, there's, you know, we've got obviously Jill and Fee doing very well. There was the all girls. I think we had 2 all goats, the Athena boats at the Nationals. You know, there were people that wanted to go down and help and set up, rig stuff, all those type of things. And you know, if we continue to do that, the dividends will pay in the long term. But you know, it's all about opportunity is probably, I think, what's really important. You know, and again, let's encourage people to have an open mind. There's a hell of a lot of female sailors that'll be better than the male crews you've had.
On that point, we're going to pivot now to Singapore. It's been great to have Andrew and Jeff and others from Singapore joining us fairly regularly on our In Conversations theories. So tonight we've got both Jeff Masters and Andrew Crombie online. Many of you'll know Jeff, sailed at the Nationals in Tribunna and Meraki. Welcome to both of you. I'm thinking Singapore, I'm thinking raffles and Singapore slings and frizzy hair and fantastic hawker food. Tell us what there is to Singapore, Jeff, and why we'd all like to hop on a plane and get over there when we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I start to sell Singapore, let me just say this has been absolutely fabulous, what you've been doing out of Tasmania there. We've been listening in as often as we can, and if we haven't listened live, we've been listening and replaying the sessions you've been running. So kudos to everybody that's been involved. We have learned so much, and as you know, we've come down and done the 2 nationals with you all, and learned so much. So can't thank you enough. And I've got to correct you on the women's team, and I know this is a huge risk. Absolutely, we said, because we didn't know any of the boats down there, our first nationals, right? So our first start, something we learned a lot in the first start of our first nationals on Derwent. We didn't know there were gas masks in the booms. We'd never had that much gas on a start line. 1 minute we were there, and all of a sudden there were so many boats in front of us with gas just coming out. There was gas masks out of our boom. Gas. Out women in SB20 boats, because you went, okay, not they're going to. We were going to be the marshmallows of the fleet. So we didn't know any of the other boats, but I think it's like, okay, those 2 boats with women, they're going to jam up over it. Okay, watch out for women now. Okay, so we didn't know the names of the boats. We don't. Okay, female boats, dangerous. Okay, they're going to push us up. Right, they know where the marshmallows, and that's how we started. So one thing we've noticed in Singapore is that you talk about the youths, because we've got the universities are so engaged in sailing up here. There's a lot of mixed crews, a lot of young women, young girls, spread across and integrated with the male crews. And they are right from the get-go. So lots of optimist sailors. They are red-hot sailors. And they've come from skippers. And in fact, they're usually the skippers, but they are quality crew all the way through. So they're red-hot talent, but you very rarely see them as all-girl crews. But they are typically the smartest on the boat, and they're very, very good. Trouble is, up in Singapore, as everybody gets to a 17, 18-year-old phase, the men go off to the army because they have to go and do their service, which means pretty much the sailing stops. So unless they go and get into their own boats that the parents fund, sort of drop out of sailing. So you very rarely see sure women come back. It's a shame. That's something that we address in the association up here. So I do hope that a number of the women from Australia come up, and it would be fantastic to organise a Zoom call with the team. And specifically talk to some of the university students, and I'm sure we could organise that, just talk about the journey, early, young, through what sailing can bring to young kids. But you'll be amazed at how many university teams now are involved in the class, because they've standardised. The unis have standardised on the SB20s as their training boat. So with that out of the way, what can I tell you about Singapore? It's a shame we've had to delay Singapore. In fact, I apologise. We here in Singapore, so we flew back from Trabanga, and we flew in. We made it by a week. If we'd come in a week later after leaving you guys, we would have had to go into a 2-week quarantine in our house. We went straight into, after that we were in quarantine. Everybody now in Singapore, and we have since I think middle of March, have had to wear one of these. It's by law. The only times we don't have to wear these are if we're at home in our house. The minute I go through my lift and go down to the car park, or the minute I step into my lift, I must have this on. Even if it's just to walk across the garage and get into my car. I can have it off in my car if I'm by myself or with my immediate family. If I get out of the car for any other reason, I've got to have this on. So that's that's something that the rest of the world is sort of coming to grips with. We're used to this more in Asia, obviously because of SARS, but we're taking it to a different level here. So it's the real world for us with COVID delaying the worlds for us was not a surprise, but it was very disappointing anyway. Let me do you a little bit of props now. One thing that you'll find when you do come up to Singapore is that it's really hot. How hot? Really hot. And while there are other places in the world where it gets hotter, I think the difference with Singapore is it's just always hot. So my partner in crime, who's the co-owner with me and Meraki and Sales Trim, had been to Tasmania twice, and I think he's actually on video with us here. Is that Andrew?
Yep, I'm on.
Go wave your hands.
I don't know everyone. Yes, no, I can see
he wrote a couple of dot points and really stressed the amount of water you've got to take on. So hopefully I'm just going to show you. You can see. Can you see the bottles of water there?
Sure can.
Okay, so that's what we were taking each every day to go out to the Asia Pacifics to do that course. Wow. So that's about, that's, you know, and that's per person, guys. And that's 2 things of Gatorade each. And it's about 8 or 9, you know, 300 ml waters. You're going to be on the water. You'll leave the dock around 10 o'clock. By around clock. So think the Tribunga type of trip, but longer. But there is no, it's just hot. Doesn't matter whether you're going to have cloud, doesn't matter.
We keep losing you a little bit.
Yeah, we're losing you, Jeff, a lot.
And you just don't want to get ahead. Sorry.
We're just losing you a little bit there. I'm wondering whether, Andrew, your connection's any better, just to sort of pick up there for a sec.
Yeah, I will. So yeah, on the temperature. So it's sorry, Jeff, I'll take over just briefly until maybe you get to feed better. The temperature. So we have a sort of standing joke that the easiest job in Singapore is the weather person, and that's because we have 2 monsoons in the year. So we have periods around Christmas, which is obviously when, you know, Christmas through, so from around about mid-December through till about early March, I suppose mid-March, when we have what's known as the northeasterly monsoon, and that's, you get steady breeze, you know, typical sort of equatorial trade winds that come through here pretty solidly up to about sort of 17, 18 knots a day, and comes out of the northeast, and it's very reliable. And typically you get rain in the late afternoon, but the weather's okay. Then we have this sort of period after that where it's very light breeze that we have, you know, 4 to 5 knots every day for a couple of months. And then we get the southwest monsoon, which kicks in around about July and comes through the middle of the year. And it's pretty much the same weather, just the opposite direction. And but the temperature every day, so, you know, annually it's quite predictable because you pretty much know what month or which week it's going to change. And then the temperature every day in winter, so we're the opposite to you, we're 60 miles north of the equator, so our winter is your summer. The temperature is, the typical weather report is there'll be showers in the late morning and early afternoon over scattered parts of the island. The temperature will be 24 to 31, although that's a lie. And then in summer, there'll be showers over the late morning, early afternoon, scattered parts of the island. The temperature will be 25 to 32. So you don't really expect a lot of excitement when it comes to temperature. Half the reason we love to come down to Hobart is because it's nice and nippy and cool, and that's your summer. So it's a bit of a refresher for us. But you will get a lot of rain. And as Jeff's been saying, the dehydration is pretty savage. And I think your guys, the guys from Porco Rosso might have reported back when they came back after the APACs earlier this year about and if they didn't, they had a pretty tough time with the dehydration. They had, I think, 2 crew members down variously, one with eating something a bit dodgy and not feeling too good, but 2 of them down with dehydration, where they were absolutely slaughtered at the end of the day, because they are long days and you do drink a lot. So you know, you tend to take a lot of the salts there. You do take Gatorades, you know, you will take gels and stuff for food. You sort of have to load up. So we're probably carrying about probably 20 to 30 pounds of extra weight on the boat that you guys wouldn't even think about carrying out to a start line, just because, you know, you need to take care of yourself. In terms of conditions up here, as I said, you know, we get in that time of the year when we'll have the APACs, we should have pretty steady breezes. I know that Singapore, I should have got a map, I wasn't prepared for this, but Singapore, of course, is an island at the bottom of the Malayan Peninsula. And we sail on the bottom part of the island. So typically when we're racing on a weekly basis, we sail right out on the western side of the island. So Singapore, to give you an idea of size, it's about 30, I think it's been growing a bit, so I may have the stats slightly wrong, but it's 35 kilometers east to west, I think, and 27 or something north to south. And I think the current stats is I think it's grown from, I think it was about 590 square kilometers when I arrived here, which is a long time ago, 30 years ago. And it's now around about 710 square kilometers. So it's not a big place. Everything's 30 minutes away from where you're sailing. But where we're racing for the apex is on the bottom part of the island.
So Andrew, is that out where you're racing out of Marina 115, are we? And we're out.
No.
So where are the worlds going to be?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. So the island is.
So guys, actually, I've got a video from my balcony showing you the. So 115 is where we're going to be sailing the worlds out of.
Yep.
Chris, yeah.
So do you go out and then go
I've
left,
just got a video
to where the
yes, turn left from
held?
Yes, exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
So you turn left out of the 115.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if you can see from my video screen now, you're looking across, across and up the coast. So I look from so I'm living on Sentosa, and off to the left, you can see the city. Yeah. And then you can see the only cruise ships in captivity at the moment. And then you can see, hopefully, you can start to see up the coast. Now, and Andrew will explain, we don't normally sail up that area, and that's where the worlds are held. So as far as local knowledge for all of us, it's very limited. But that's where the course will be.
I've got a map up on screen. I can show you exactly where it is.
Is the famous pool party coming back, Jeff, importantly for the regatta, like at the, the Grand Slams?
Yeah. My understanding is that all of the last court cases have been cleared, and they will be. All videos have been thrown out, so that should be. And all monies have been paid appropriately. They will be.
Worth just going for that.
That's going to come through.
That sounds like
it was good fun. Believe me.
We're all coming.
So let me just bring. I've just put a map up if you want. I'll just show you roughly where it is for those who don't know Singapore. Can I just share screen? Do you mind, Jane?
Yeah, sure.
Very quickly.
And who's that? Andrew's talking to me. Just a second.
Yes. Yeah.
Should be right to go.
Okay, just give me a sec. So here's the map of Singapore. So if you look at Singapore, can you see that? So our typical racing, if you can see my cursor, is...
Not yet, Andrew, not for me at least.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
We can, okay.
Okay.
Oh, yep,
so we typically race out in the west here, just between Malaysia. So this is Malaysia on the top. Goes right around Singapore, and this is Singapore here. So we typically race out here at what they call Tuas, which is the western side. Where Jeff was talking about is in this area here. So to give you an idea, so the city is right around at the top here where this water is here, Marina Bay, this whole area here. And the boats will be sitting in, if they're sitting from 115, they're just in this area here on Sentosa. So if I blow that up here, they sit inside Sentosa here. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And so you come out of Sentosa, and the racing area, to give you an idea, is up off the East Park here. So we race in this area. Now that's probably, how far would that be, Jeff? Probably about 5 Ks.
It was a decent, it was a reasonable trip over there. Yeah.
It's a big, it's a good drag.
It's a fairway, depending on where they race, because we can race anywhere up in this area here. It's all gazetted for sailing. Outside this line here are all of the container ships, and there's so many of them. They're just parked here right out. So I understand, Jeff, and you can confirm that with the APACs, they're looking to try and see whether we can get more distance away from the shore, because the front line of the shore here is some fairly tall buildings. So they're trying to create it so we can have more space out here in which to have longer runs away from the shore. but it's great sailing grounds. There's a little bit of set that can run depending on the tide. Obviously, this is a part of one of the busiest shipping strait in the world, and the set can come around here from the South China Sea round to the the Straits of Johor of Sumatra, and so you do get a little bit of set, maybe 1 knot to 1.5 knots, but it's not major, and it's quite even across the course, even right up to the beach. It's only the last 20 metres before the beach that you start to get an impact. Quite different from where we race on a weekly basis, which is in 3 knots. Can be 3 knots like it was last weekend, and a lot of differentials around the place. And then on the island, so a lot of the accommodation, there's a lot of accommodation areas around here, around the inner city, but also hotels on the island, depending on your budget, how much you want to spend. But fantastic little restaurants here, but it's only everywhere in Singapore, maximum 25 minutes away, 30 minutes away, furthest parts of the island. And there's tons, if you haven't been here before, there's the local food. If you want to live 5-star Western in hotels, you'll pay for it. But if you want to live like the locals and try the local food, and it's incredibly good local food in the hawker centres, those of you who've experienced it, and the beer's cheap in the hawker centres, and even the local restaurants, not too expensive. You can have fantastic food and do it very cost effectively. And so, it is a really great environment to have a regatta. Jeff, any comments?
No, just guys, like we said, we've been so delighted in the way that you've all helped us when we've come down. We'll go out of our way to help any of the Australian crews that come up. I think that we are seeing a swing up of people getting into the sport, into the fleet here. It's the only one design sports boat racing up here, which is good. This season alone, we used to sort of have to hustle to get 5 good boats. Now we're getting 10. I think that, and we'll keep working with you. We've bought one of the boats down there, which we sailed at Tribunga. It's coming up. I would suggest, and we'll be continuing to work at this as we lock in the new dates for the new worlds, to trying to bring your own boats up and trying to pre-sell them. I think if you're keen to sell some, I think is a much better possibility for you now than it was just a few months ago, because of the level of sailing and experienced people are getting here. So these fleets, as I listened to the start of your call where you were looking at your numbers, I've done one design as Andrew has done for years. I've done Belgians 24s, 32s, Etchells, Sydney 38s, and they always get to a certain amount, and especially good classes, right, where they are good boats and you can just keep putting new sails on them, and there's only a certain amount of guys capable of sailing them well. And, the boats they don't actually slow up. You just got to keep putting good sails on them. So I think that, and the age of the boats up here, just like us, we bought an old one. We got it as far as we could. And then we decided, we came down to Tasmania and went, got to get it better. We just got to look at the condition of this. So I think that if there was ever a group of people that wanted to sort of, refresh their boats, you're going to find a market, I think. And I think pre-selling them, we're going to work very hard at making sure that the price to bring them up and return them are very good. But I think that you're going to walk into a set of people that are going to see your boats compared to what we've got up here. I think that that's an opportunity for yourselves as well. Okay, so and you'll see Australians keep coming down to your program because they're not going to be going to Europe over the next 12 months. It's just going to be too hard to do
we've
that.
been selling it very hard. Yeah, we've been selling it very hard because we just think it's for here, it's great value. Get down to Hobart. If we can get more boats down to the next championships, we will. You know, it's great fun, great sailing, excellent racing. I mean, the quality and standard of your fleet is fantastic. We learn so much, and there's a lot of very interested people here. And as Jeff said earlier, you know, the universities have now chosen the SB20 as their go-to class. We have a fleet of, how many would there be? 8, I suppose, that are sitting at the other end of the car park, which are going through registration at the moment, which are owned by the universities. Slightly more budget-orientated program, but they're coming through, and they have, you know, lots of people who, you know, these are not just undergraduates; these are people who are doing masters and so on, and they put together some very good crews of national teams, ex-national teams, and sometimes they give us a pretty solid lesson, which is good. Yeah. So there's a lot going on up here in the class now, which is great.
See, and they'll buy our second-hand boats, yeah, guys. So there's a market starting to develop. So just think that, you know, we'll work with you. You know, it's just something which is starting to get some activity. So we'll work with you, and it just, hopefully we can get a regional thing happening, which starts to, you know, as you're trying to get Australia to work across states, we're trying to get a regional thing. So the Malaysia is, they've been using, what's the class they run, Andrew? The older class.
They have plateaus, which are
plateaus,
in this part of the world.
Yeah,
plateau 25s.
And they're all old and done. So we've been we got a couple of the Malaysians to come over and do the Apex, and worked really hard to get them into the SBs to do that. And we're trying to get them to engage into the SBs just to broaden the market, so that stronger we can get a market going across the region. It just opens up everybody's opportunities for you know, expanding the class and getting more boats moving through, and more masts and booms and everything. Anyway, that was sort of the highlight. We'd love you to come up. It is great. It's a place where, when the conditions are right, and that's the time, it's monsoonal, it's trades, you know you're going to get wind, and then there's times when there isn't, and that's, you don't want to be sailing here. But during that period is when it is sailing, and there's plenty of breeze, and it's great fun.
Look, thank you so much, Jeff and Andrew, for coming on and giving us that update. And I'm sure there'll be lots of people online tonight, and even those who aren't, who are really keen to get to Singapore and to build that regional connection, and also to think about what they are doing with their boats into the future. Scott, did you have any additional questions at all, or any questions for Andrew and Jeff?
No, I'd like to thank them for their presentation. Certainly sounds as though there's an opportunity there to get up and have a bit of fun and a bit of partying, which is all good. And we certainly welcome.
We can certainly sort that out.
Any more of your boats that would love to come to. There are boats available for charter. I'm working on Nick Burfoot with the World Council. I'm talking to him, so I might be able to talk him into getting down and have a race here. I think
keep pushing, Nick.
I think it's crucial that that Singapore and Australia work very closely together. I mean, you're not quite Southern Hemisphere, but you're our closest neighbour. And if we're going to grow the class in the Asia Pacific region, I think we've got to be working very closely together to make that happen.
Yep.
No, we agree 100%. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, Jeff and Andrew. Yeah, and we'll be in touch, or at least Scott and the exec will be in touch, and other members of our association in Australia. So thanks very much, and stay safe and keep your mask on until you're not allowed to, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
No worries at all. Look, that's about wraps it up. I'm all tongue-tied. That about wraps it up for tonight. We've gone a little bit over time, as we do, but it's our final session tonight, so fair enough that we have. In closing, I've got just a couple of things, if you'd bear with me, to say. Obviously, I'd like to thank everyone online tonight, and everyone who's been online with us over the last nearly 5 months, I think it is. I wasn't quite sure how the sessions would go when we talked about it with the exec, but I'm really pleased with how things have rolled out, and feedback's been really great, and we're getting quite a lot of views on some of our SB20 YouTube channel videos, so that's great. So remember that they're all up there if you want to go and revisit, especially as you're dusting off your boats to sail in a couple of weeks. I've actually learned a little bit about sailing, would you believe? I've been baffled, particularly by Toiler's whiteboard at times, but it's been great making new connections. It's been great making connections with the international SB20 family, so it's lovely having Andrew and Jeff on, and Duarte, who's from Portugal, has been on almost every session as well, and we've picked up some friends from the Holland Ocean Racing Academy who are training on SB20s at the moment, Jan Truwen and his team, so it's been great to have those on, and also the younger guys and women who've come on to talk with us. It's no big mean feat to get a call from the other side of the world for Bernardo a couple of weeks ago can you come on a webinar in Australia and talk about sailing? So he was quite happy to do it. So it's been fabulous that you've had that connection. And the same for our younger sailors here, Will and Meg in particular, who were on last week. As I mentioned earlier, the Australian Sailing Awards for Tassie have been on this year. Ollie Burnell's not on tonight. He took out with Tas Sharpies the promotion awards, so congratulations to him. He was up against me, so I'm like, oh, Ollie. But all absolutely due respect to the Sharpies. It's great to see those young sailors really driving the return of the lightweight Sharpie in Hobart. So congratulations to them. I know that we're all proud of them and love seeing the Sharpies on the water. So well done, Ollie. I'd also like to make mention of Ian Ross. He's the official of the year. Ian was the race officer for our nationals up in Triabana. He's out almost every Thursday night for the Twilights and a host of other events. So congratulations to Ian. Ethan Galbraith and Charlie Zeman have also been on SB20s. They're the Youth Sailors of the Year. And Enzo, who we don't see very often on the water, I think was the Offshore Sailor of the Year. So we've got Brett Cooper in the final announcement tomorrow for Sailor of the Year. So we wish him luck, and I hope I haven't missed anyone. I'd also like to just shout out to Colleen Darcy for the fantastic work she's been doing over the last couple of weeks in her new role as the sailing manager for the Derwent Sailing Squadron. Some fantastic photos and coverage of the entire fleet that contested the pipe opener, but great to see a woman stepping into that role. So in a fortnight's time, we won't be sitting here. We'll be sitting at the bar or standing at the bar or doing whatever you need to do in club rooms these days.
We'll be out of quarantine.
I'll be out of quarantine. I come straight out of quarantine, 2 tests out of quarantine, grab my camera and onto the water. So I will be a maniac next Thursday night, I think. So, so a lot of people will be out of quarantine and we'll be back on the water. So we're very, very excited about that. So thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks on the water, and stay safe. It's been a tumultuous year and it's made planning difficult, but the most important thing is we all stay safe. So look after yourselves, and I'll see you all sooner rather than later. Ciao for now.
Just before we all leave, on behalf of the association, I'd just like to pass on our gratitude to you, Jane. Jeff picked up earlier on about such a fantastic job you've done putting this series together. We are the envy of the rest of the world when it comes to the media coverage and the promotion that you do. I know you acknowledged Ollie in winning the award. They must have been very good to beat you, is all I will say, as far as promoting the sport. I'm sure we'll all get a chance to thank you personally, but certainly from an executive and personally, you've done a fantastic job. I had to host it last week and it was not that much fun. So kudos to you. And I'm sure we'd all like to put our hands together and say thank you very much, Jane.
Well done, Jane.
Thanks, everyone. It's actually been a real pleasure, I have to say. The first one I was a nervous wreck and spent a lot of time in the green room, and my poor husband, Stevie, was beside himself. But I now even know sort of one end of the boat from the other, so that's actually pretty exciting. And yeah, I don't sail, but I have promised to get on an SB20, so I've had a couple of offers. I think I'm going to go out with Fee and Jill before I go out with Steve, just in case Steve doesn't do things the way I like him to do things. But apparently he thinks we'd argue. No, so no, I'm looking forward to getting actually onto a boat this year. So perhaps I'll do a blog from there, or have a have a little camera on my head or something, but might be a few too many bleeps like the old skiffs on Sydney Harbour.
You have to behave yourself, ladies.
I know.
To listen.
There'll be an ear-piercing shriek from Faye if we get
enough to see Jill's boat to know you don't need to mind your language that much, Jane.
No, this is true. This is true. All righty. Well, look, thanks very much, everyone, and it's been a pleasure. And I will see you all soon, and see my family soon too. So say goodbye to my daughter Elsie today, and I'll see Steve in 14 days. So take care and stay safe.
You too.
Okay. Cheers.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done, Janie.
Thanks, Stevie. I'll stop recording.